Hello, fellow explorers, and welcome back to the series on Capacity and You. Today we're going to be taking a look at my personal favorite part of any kind of considerations of gearing up: the firearms, the guns, the weapons, the attachments, all of that. So for today, we're going to be taking a look at shotguns, pistols, and SMGs. This also does apply to rifles as well. However, I can make my point a bit clearer with these three categories of weapons. First, let's take a normal double-barrel shotgun, for instance. This doesn't have a whole lot going on with it right now. It is fairly bone stock. It can hold 2 rounds, and that's about it. However, fortunately, we do have attachments available to us. Were I to want to upgrade my capacity, I can easily throw these shell holders on for a total of 16 extra, plus 2 in the gun, 18 shells total. I'm eating pretty good. However, the main thing to keep in mind are rail attachments. If I would be so good as to actually, there we go, attach it properly. Now, why are rails important? Well, you can attach all sorts of things onto these rails. I could have a foregrip for a more steady aim. I could have a flashlight for dark environments, or I could have a laser to aim a bit more effectively. And I could, in theory, throw any of these attachments on top of this rail as well. These rails are the same, they are universal. However, obviously, if I have a top rail, I would like to most likely mount an optic onto it. Now, I prefer these holographic sights, the EOTech pattern of holographic sight. However, collimators are nice too. I can't really get the hang of this collimator sight as well as this one, but it is up to personal preference. It's all about reticles, being able to find it. You will have to experiment for yourself. You also have magnified optics as well for different ranges and things like that. So let's say I want to put a red dot on this. I can easily do that, or the holographic sight rather. There we go, nice clear sight picture. The main way to augment these reflex sights, the holographic, the reflex sight itself, and this reflex sight as well, those are the only 3 sights that can accept this magnifier. What does the magnifier do? Well, it magnifies things. It is like a magnified scope, however, it is for specifically your electronic sights. It gives a slight magnification, but not as good as the dedicated sights that are meant for longer ranges. This is a nice middle ground, however, it is a compromise, so it's not as magnified. However, out in the field, you will be able to flip this up and down, so you can have either just a basic one-time zoom, meaning none, or a little bit of zoom. That is the main premise of the attachments for the shotgun and most rails in general. Now, if you have an AK pattern rifle, notice this dovetail mount on the side. This is very important as well, because in order to have a rail on top, you will need to have a matching dovetail and attach it first before you can use any of these optics here. And the nice thing about the AK dovetails is that you can still use your iron sights as well. Surprisingly, even with a railed optic on it, you can still hunker down on these sights. Very useful for if you are close enough with a magnified optic, you might be able to duck your head down a little bit and take a few more imprecise shots. Also, you have an additional option for the dovetail mount with the PSO1 scope, which is a very magnified optic. Very good for the snipers in the crowd. Now, let's say I want this shotgun specifically. As it stands, the IZH-27, the compact version, has a very interesting property to it. It can fit in both the primary holster as well as the sidearm holster. Now, here's the thing about that. If I could get these apart, there we go. The sidearm holster has a capacity of 200 total. That means you can only put 200 inside of it. This IZH has a total weight of 80. However, as I start adding attachments to this, the weight is going to go up and up and up and up. Now, I need to make sure that I stay below 200 if I want to put it in that holster. Because if I keep adding attachments and all this jazz, and I get too careless with my weight, then I will eventually run into a problem where it will no longer fit inside the holster. However, this is at max capacity, and we no longer have that issue. Were I to put any more weight on this, though, it will no longer fit into the sidearm holster. If you want to use this abomination, though, well, I wouldn't recommend it, but you certainly can. If we come over here to my very special guest, this is a stashed version of the PP-19 Bison. It has a total weight where it's loaded, cocked, ready to rock, but unsafe. It has a total weight of 160.5. It fits inside of the sidearm holster. However, the actual bot variation of the Bison has a weight of 135. However, it will not fit inside of the secondary into the sidearm holster. That is mostly because the UNPSC doesn't want us to be loading ourselves too terribly much, because were you to take, because this magazine is, again, fully loaded, the magazine itself is 150 for 185, and then it's going to be assumed that you're going to be putting attachments on this. This has a dovetail, so you would need to get the rail and then throw optics on as well. Even though the weight capacity is under the sidearm, this will not fit inside of a sidearm holster. Something to keep in mind as well. Most of the stashed versions of guns, the AKS-74U, the AKM, the Bison, the Saiga, so on and so forth, the G36K, any of those weapons that don't have a stock should more than likely fit a sidearm holster, which is very nice, as I've gone over in other videos. That helps you shave down on weight and what you are carrying. So being able to fit inside of a pistol holster does help quite a bit. However, these sights are not glow sights, whereas this one is, this has rails, this doesn't, so on and so forth. It's all about trade-offs. Still, a Bison is a Bison, and it is a very, very handy little gun. And of course, it can also fit in a primary holster. Now, the thing about primary holsters is it is not a sidearm holster. Dedicated sidearms, such as a PM, will fit inside of a sidearm holster. However, they will not fit inside of a primary holster. Again, this is probably to prevent us from losing our sidearms, as they would just fall straight through the primary holster. So keep that in mind, that your guns need to fit in their appropriate holsters. However, there is a little bit of a hybrid breathing room as well. So play around with your kit, see what guns fit where, but be mindful of the weight if you're trying to fit a gun inside of a sidearm holster that is able to accept it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.